So I want to talk to you about a few things here. First thing I want to talk to you about, because of this California fire thing and because Donald Trump is who Donald Trump is, he posted this. Governor Gavin Newsom refused to sign the water restoration declaration put before him that would allow millions of gallons of water from excess rain and snow melt from the north to flow daily into many parts of California, including the areas that are currently burning in a virtually apocalyptic way. He wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish called a smelt. By giving it less water, it didn't work. But didn't care about the people of California. Now the ultimate price is being paid. I will demand that this incompetent governor allow beautiful, clean, fresh water to flow into California. He is the blame for this. On top of it all, no water for fire hydrants, not firefighting planes. A true disaster. Okay. The last part is true. It is a disaster. What's going on in California is an absolute disaster. There is no such thing as the Water Restoration Declaration. Gavin Newsom never had an opportunity to sign it because it doesn't exist. Furthermore, well, this thing is just chocked full of lies. For example, there are firefighting planes because we know of at least a handful that have gone down from Quebec, from the province of Quebec here in Canada. So there are firefighting planes, and those agreements have been in place for like decades. That every year, Quebec sends equipment down, just in case. Every year, we send equipment down, just in case something like this happens. As for the water and the hydrants, I heard somebody yesterday give an interview, and in which they said there is no city in the world that is built, whose water system is built, whose water system is capable of fighting the kind of fires that are raging in Los Angeles right now. Nowhere, right? So now I get it. He wants to blame the governor. He doesn't like the governor. The governor doesn't like him for all intents and purposes, as far as I can tell. I get it. All that. We could go through this. We could pick out the falsehoods. Most of it is false. The thing, as I read this the other day, the thing that grabbed me, and it could be completely, please understand, it could be completely wrong by doing so, is that line that he says there, that Gavin Newsom wanted to protect an essentially worthless fish. That bothered me. Now, not because it's a smelt, and I have a very, very, very big heart for smelts. That's the fish in question, by the way. It's called a delta smelt. Now, I don't really know how big it is. I don't think it's as big as the picture as it appears on my screen, but it's endangered. It's endangered, and it is a protected species. For what it's worth, smelts here in Atlantic Canada, especially the ones that are caught in the Miramichi, oh my gosh, they're tasty, fried up. Anyway, they're amazing. So if you ever happen to be in Miramichi, New Brunswick during the smelt run, oh, you are lucky. Enjoy. But apart from eating it, this particular fish, it has worth. It is not an essentially worthless fish, because like every other creation on the planet, it doesn't exist as a creature on its own, right? It exists as part of the ecosystem. It exists as part of creation. And if you happen to be a believer out there, and if you happen to be a Christian out there, then I hope you took offense to that line, an essentially worthless fish, because what Trump says is an essentially worthless fish is something that God put together. God created, God designed, God gave birth to into this world. God placed in our care. So that essentially worthless fish, according to Donald Trump, is God's creation. And nothing that God created is worthless. Everything that God created has purpose. Everything that God created has meaning. Everything that God created has value. And not just to itself, but to the world around it. Everything. Now, you and I, and Donald Trump, and every part of his cabinet, and every person who supports him, and every person who doesn't support him, every person in this world drawing breath, we have a responsibility. Now, oftentimes I think people see nature as like some kind of hierarchy pyramid. We just talked about Maslow's, where man is on the top and then all the animals are below it at some level. And so this little delta smelt in California, it's on the lowest possible level, way, way, way down there in a place where nobody cares about. But that's not how creation works. It's not us and then the elephants and then the lions and the dolphins and the whales and the zebras and the cattle and the sheep and all. We're not the top of a pyramid. Creation exists within a system. And it's a system that we're all a part of. It's a system that our existence here in the world, it's a system that depends on us to be there. And if you happen to be a student of the Bible, and if you happen to be a believer, if you happen to be a follower of Christ, then you also know that we've been made stewards of this creation. Not just using creation for our own needs, though there is mention that we can eat and we can take the resources from it, but we are to be stewards, which means ultimately we're to make sure that creation isn't harmed by our presence, harmed by our consumption. We're to be stewards of it. We're to protect it. We're to maintain it. We're to encourage it, to help it, to foster it. The idea that we might see some aspect of creation, including mosquitoes and black flies, things that I detest, including those creepy crawly things with sharp pointy teeth, including those things that go bump in the night, those things that we never should reach out our hand to, regardless of how docile or how gentle or how dangerous. All of these things exist within a system that desperately need these things to exist within it. And when those things, regardless of how big or regardless of how small, are removed from the system, the entire system shudders. The entire system shudders. Now listen, animals have gone extinct. We know this. There are fossil records. We know that animals have come and gone, without question. We know that humanoid species have come and gone. We know, and this had nothing to do with human interactions, right? Animal species have gone extinct, and humans had zero to do with it. It wasn't our fault. We weren't even around. It wasn't because we were irresponsible. It wasn't because we were greedy. We weren't even conscious. We weren't even part of the system. But that doesn't mean it's okay when species do go extinct on our watch. Yeah, there is natural selection. Absolutely. But if that natural selection is influenced, if a species decimation is influenced, their extinction is influenced by our involvement, it's on us. That smelt, that tiny wee little fish, it's impacted because of us. Its natural habitat has been detrimentally impacted because of human involvement. We must despite the fact that, even if it means that there's less water for humans, if it means protecting a piece of God's creation, then we go without the water. If it means that humans have to adjust, or humans have to move, or humans have to find another way, then that's what we do if it means protecting God's creation, because nothing that God has ever created is, quote unquote, essentially worthless. It's all precious to God. No matter what Donald Trump says, all of it is precious to God. What a huge responsibility we've been given. I pray, I hope we're up for it. Amen.